I think that you don't have an appreciation for your environment as an adult unless that was driven home to you as a child, whether it be by your teachers or your parents or your family.
I can say I started as a conservationist at a really young age. I think it actually began with my grandfather, and he's the one that brought me out into nature. He would have a big garden, and I learned to see what should be out in nature, what shouldn't be there, but also what I can do.
My dad would call all of us, line us up, and we'll walk the beach, and he'll scan the beach for fish. And he'd be carrying a tekken, which is a lay net, gill net, a couple 100 feet. And so when he'd spot it, we'd slowly go out into the water as to not disturb the fish. And a couple of us, since we were so small, would hold one end and he'd stretch it. Then a couple of my brothers would go in and spunta, or chase the fish into the net.
Every day that I could remember when I was growing up here in Guam, we had the secondary residence, whereby we learned the plants of Guam. We learned their usage. We learned about the animals of Guam.
My father is more into carpentry, and he came from Chinese Chamorro background, so that he loves fishing. So as a child, we were down at the beach every Sunday, and so we had already a natural love of nature, and then we also had a home in the city, as Tony explained earlier, and then a home in the ranch. So when we went to the ranch, we were learning all our traditional skills.
The memory of going out there in nature and looking at what we have out there. I mean, if I'm going to compare that to now, I haven't even brought my kids out yet. But now, coming to doing this workshop here, it just made me realize all these things that I've missed showing my kids.
You know, when you learn anything in life, the first thing you should know is who you are, where you come from, your origin. And so if, in the Guam case, you have to begin to learn the environment of Guam before you learn other environments throughout the world, and how these ecosystems are all interconnected, so that we can appreciate, the ecosystem of Guam, and then go beyond Guam to the other areas throughout the world.
Being that the focus of this workshop and the curriculum in general is getting kids out there and seeing what is in their backyards, that's a way for the Navigating Change program to open up their eyes and get them excited about science or the cultural entities that they may not have known about. It allows us the opportunity to maybe create some of our own navigators, our own world-renowned scientists, or even just scientists or researchers or teachers of our own that are just proud of who they are and where they've come from and what their islands have to offer.
The lucens down here are the bowl-like holes in the ledges of caves, and these are evidences that the Chamorros, they sat here, and whether they were mushing up leaves for medicine, or cracking their betel nuts, or clam, or whatever it is they were snacking on, and that's what it's for. It's a mortar and pestle set.
So it really jump-starts our program in terms of really getting teachers committed by giving them the tools they need to fold it directly into their curriculum. And they have avenues now that they've hooked in with us to start doing some of these field studies outside of their classroom.
What we kind of all liked most about the workshop and what we had set out in planning the workshop was having a diverse group of participants in the specialists that we were using, so the forestry specialists or the cocoa specialists or marine biology specialists, and then the teachers. So just the fact that we were collaborating with Larry Cunningham from TASI and Emily Sablan from the National Wildlife Refuge and myself, UOGC grant, we were a diverse group in ourselves, so we all kind of brought different people to the table. For instance, Tony Ramirez, it's a science curriculum, right, but he is a knowledgeable cultural individual, and so Tony was an incredible resource in providing that component that wouldn't have been present if it was just science-based and we were talking about cocoa birds and how they reproduce, or brown tree snakes and why they're a threat.
We have people who know the tradition, people who are experienced with navigating, just a numerous amount of, like, you know, different people with different backgrounds. So I think we have a pretty good group that can push this forward.
When I talk to kids, I try and make it relate. And I think tradition is one of those relating elements that everyone can find themselves in.
If you look at the Chamorro way, you don't learn things in segments. You learn it as a whole thing. And you will experience a song, and you will experience the science aspects of living on Guam. And so everything, there's a lot of interaction going on with people, sharing whatever their special area is. So it's the way to learn.
From the very beginning in the workshop, we were learning by doing, and we broke up into our groups and we're learning the basic tools that were a part of the Navigating Change program, and we did that by doing them ourselves. So we used those tools then as examples of tools that we could develop to help our kids learn by doing.
We need to experiment with other ways of learning. And we have been in such a Western structure of education here in Guam, as in other places, and that has to change, because you're missing a whole part of how a child grows up, and his thinking is a Pacific way of thinking.
So the Canoe House was, to me, a very important part of this whole Navigating Change program, and for us to introduce the teachers to the Canoe House and to the canoe community, to me, was a very important step and a very important resource for teachers. Is one of the highlights of my trip. My upbringing and my experience as a canoe builder and my passion for canoes throughout my life. It was an opportunity to see the ultimate canoe, basically.
If you'll notice, flat on one side and curved on the other. Looking at it as a boat, most people go, okay, it's a boat. But if we think about it for a second, what do you know that flat on one side and curved on another side?
Sunsetting.
The wing of an airplane. The ancestors 4,000 years ago knew about aerodynamics, or hydrodynamics actually, because we're talking about water, but the same idea. That this allows the boat to come closer to the wind, that it allows it to be more controllable at different speeds, and as it heels into the wind and that kind of stuff.
They're actually sharing about how they built them and the whole process in some of their voyages. So that was really exciting for me. And it's one of those things that you go to a place like Guam and you, for me, understanding how special it is, you come with this program and you just hope other people come and they understand how amazing their ancestors were and how lucky it is that they have the opportunity to have those canoes right there for themselves to experience and see and be proud of.
In the island cultures, we were always centered around knowing that none of us could survive without the help of everyone else. So the metaphor of being really stuck on a canoe and having to, really rely on everyone around you really does connect you to the oneness of an island culture. On top of that, you can relate the canoe to being the island as well. Everything that goes on here doesn't go away. We can't look to other countries to really fix our environmental problems. We all have to do it together.
It's working together. It doesn't matter what capacity or what role you have. The concept is we have to work together to get there, or else we're not going to get there.
Anyone here on Guam, they go out into their backyard, you will hear nothing. You'll hear silence. And you talk to the manamko, the older generation, the grandparents, and they will tell you that's not what it sounded like. There are all these birds that we had that no longer are here. And right now, you still hear life. But I think it's more the life of people that you hear. You hear and I see people are now, like I said, interacting with their environment.
At Virginia Point, we were planting the trees ourselves. The kids were getting into it. And it was a work in progress, and you could see that it was a work in progress.
what we're doing here is we're going to maintain this shade so the little aphid tree feels like he's in a forest. And once he gets up, then we can cut the tangin. So let's get those trees in the ground. You can just go to a flag, but let's try to spread them out a little because we have more trees too. And for all the kids who don't have a tree, there's some in pots over there, so go grab one and you can plant one too.
Retidian is one of those places that I believe can be used more as an environmental classroom, an outdoor space. And it's definitely something we all should work, because it is for Guam. It is part of Guam. There's such cultural history here. There's so much potential that, we just need to grab hold of it and use it.
This is a dog tree on Chamorro, and it's used to build canoes. It's a heavy wood and a hardwood, so it's kind of surprising that it would be used. It's so strong that the ancient Chamorros could cut it only as thick as their finger. We think this is one of the reasons why the Chamorro canoe was so fast. They could use this strong, heavy wood, but cut it so thin that the overall weight of the canoe was quite light. All through Micronesia, they use this tree for every point in the canoe where there's stress.
One of Russell's shots, he got this shot of Gordon planting the da'uk tree, which is a tree that is used to build sailing canoes. And so he's planting this tree. Manny Sakal, who's a navigator from Puluwat, dug the hole. Gordon finds this piece of ancient pottery and just kind of nonchalantly says, hey, check this out, this piece of pottery here. And then, Manny takes it and kind of dusts it off and, takes a good look at it. And I couldn't help but think while I was in the editing room, my gosh, here you have a guy planting a tree that's gonna, maybe someday be used to build a new canoe, handing a piece of ancient pottery that he finds just sitting in the dirt that Manny dug the hole for. I mean, the amount of stuff in just one place, at Retidian Point for kids to discover.
My favorite part of the workshop was probably going to Cocos Island. I'd never been there. I've been here a couple years now, and even some of the teachers that have lived here their whole lives had never been.
Just seeing and hearing the birds, which you cannot hear like right now. Even just from the dock, you could already hear the birds, which is very calming and peaceful. And that's exactly what I would like to hear here on Guam. So stepping into that environment made me feel very peaceful. And if we could have that here, I think everybody will enjoy it too.
I would hope that teachers and any other educator in the community would see that the island is the school. The whole island is a school. And then if you go beyond just Guam, it's the Marianas, and Micronesia is your school.
One of the things that really hit home for me is that we've been working on ways and developing ways for children to understand that many of these professional careers are possible for them. And it's one of my main passions, is one of the reasons why I came back to Guam, was to show kids that they could be scientists if they really wanted to.
We can revive and awaken that spirit of, environmentalism here. So I see it. I mean, I definitely see that we can have our animals back. We can have our birds back that once, used to be here. It can all come back if we all work together.
We should all understand where we're at right now, and with what we have after this workshop will be our tools to work with through the rest of the course till we get to the point of actually officially documenting restoration and preservation for generations to come.
Now that I've experienced this again, I don't want to take it away anymore. I want to feed my child all the knowledge we have around here. Hopefully, and I'm wanting my kids to, do that, to go out, and when they see something, Mom, I'm going to go pick that up because this is hurting our island, hurting our heart.
You might get the best out of them when they go out to the ocean. So take them to the places where they can do more learning, and then start from where they are. Start from their island and then move to the global world.